The following is a production by Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. You can support Lone Star Community Radio by donating and sponsoring programs just like this. For more information, check us out online at irlonestar.com. This segment is brought to you by
Team Sinisi is a proud sponsor of Conroe Culture News. Vinny Sinisi and his professional team provide comprehensive real estate services throughout the greater Montgomery County area and beyond. Whether looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, Team Sinisi has an impeccable reputation. Contact Team Sinisi for a great experience at teamsinisi.com. That's TEAMSINISI.com.
Since 2004, Roger Stein Chiropractic has offered spine and joint manipulation services to residents of Montgomery County and surrounding areas. Conditions treated include lower back pain, migraines, headaches, whiplash, carpal tunnel, neck pain, sciatica, joint pain, sports injuries, herniated discs, and complications from pregnancy. Roger Stein Chiropractic, led by Dr. Stacy Rogers and Dr. Brian McGee, is an integrity-verified chiropractic clinic. Call 936-441-9990 for an appointment or visit rogerssteinchiropractic.com. That's RODGERSSTEIN chiropractic.com.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
And we are back. I am Margie Taylor, your host for Conroe Culture News and Taylorized PR. We are here speaking with Ben Armenta, who is a candidate for Texas Land Commissioner. Now, of course, after you hear what he has to say and why he's qualified to be Texas Land Commissioner, you can follow up on his Facebook page, which is, of course, Ben Armenta, Texas, or benarmenta.com to find out more about him. You could even probably make a donation to your campaign, I'm thinking.
You
right?
absolutely can. So, that's right. You can.
If it so moves you. That. So he's covering all of the state of Texas, which I'm sure is quite a task.
There's a few counties.
Yeah. I mean, I'm having a hard time covering all of Montgomery County. So Texas would be a big one, and he's got a team of people to help you out. But let's hear a little bit about Ben and what he's doing as a candidate.
Well, look, Margie, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's fantastic to be back in Montgomery County and in Conroe. You're right. There's a lot of counties in Texas. In fact, since I announced in September, I've been to over 75 counties. I think it's I think it's a few oil changes, lots of windshield time.
And you have a scheduler, right?
I do, yeah. but I keep coming back to Montgomery County. You know, we all say that how Texas goes, that's how the country's going to go. Well, I feel the same way about Montgomery County.
It is the reddest county in Texas. You know that, right?
Look, I am running on a platform around holding the line for our values. And if we're going to do that, we need to ensure that Montgomery County continues to model the way for the other 253 counties. So it's an exciting time, and I'm really glad to be here with you and your audience.
Fabulous. So let's go backwards a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up just outside of Austin in the Round Rock area. My family immigrated from Mexico several generations ago. Family of entrepreneurs, family of veterans. Both my parents are educators. I ended up going to Texas A&M, and I did that to become a teacher. And so when I got out of school, I was a junior high and high school teacher in the Spring area. But I eventually found my way into business. Did large oil and gas consulting. I started and grew a couple companies, and I've just been super fortunate to find my wife in Texas, start and grow my family in Texas, grow my businesses in Texas.
How many children do you have?
I've got two, Lily and Jack. So Lily is a strong 14-year-old, 8th grader, and my son Jack is 13. and they keep us very busy.
I'm sure.
As you can imagine.
As well as covering the state of Texas.
Yes, but they come on the road with me.
Do they?
Yeah, when they
That's
can.
awesome.
So it's deciding to get into public service like this and running for office, it really is a life event.
It is.
And I feel confident and excited to do it because I've got the backing of my family. That's a big part of it. And this was a family decision. My kids are old enough to kind of understand what's going on in the state of Texas and across the country. And they're excited to learn about the land office and excited to be a part of
It's good
the
education,
journey.
right?
It's the best. It's real.
Absolutely.
It's real.
Yeah. No, I fully support that. And yes, your family does have to be involved because this takes a lot of time.
It does. It does.
I mean, a lot of time.
I do this
you run
now
as a candidate.
I actually do this now full time, and it's a blessing, to be honest. It really is. I meet a lot of different people from across this state, elected officials, voters, people who haven't voted in years, who are thinking about voting now and getting involved. Texas is the best state in the union because of the people that make it up.
They're genuine.
And the values that we all hold. I mean, what really makes everybody a Texan? It's our values. That's the connective tissue, whether you're in Amarillo or El Paso or Montgomery County or Hopkins County or whatever. It's the values.
Tell me about the values as you see them.
Well, look, Texas is about the individuals. It's about families making choices that are best for them and their kids and their future. It's about allowing small businesses to flourish and be a vehicle for change and for achieving visions that the entrepreneurs have. And that's what Texas is all about. I mean, this was a homesteading state in the 1800s, and it was its own country because of that same spirit that we carry through all the way to today. I mean, that's why, I've lived in other parts of the state. I've lived in other states and even in other countries. But this is where we chose to raise our family and start my businesses because of all that opportunity.
So as a small business owner, you can understand and have empathy for things that they go through. And your position will impact some of the businesses. Tell me about how that impacts businesses and what you do.
Well, you aren't kidding about empathy. In fact, people will ask me, how did I decide to get into politics? I think
exactly.
I've been thinking about public service for a very long time, but I really enjoyed the work I was doing. But about a year ago, I think I was complaining a lot. I was complaining about mandates, complaining about
like 2020. Who
about
wasn't?
Lockdowns.
Sure,
we
absolutely.
had customers and clients who were going out of business.
Absolutely.
And one day, my wife looked at me from across the dinner table and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And she was right. I mean, I had an opportunity and a platform to step off the sidelines and to try to do something about it, to try to hold the line for our values. So that's what I'm doing. And the land office is the only agency in the state of Texas that's a profit center on the books. It generates revenue for our public schools, over $1 billion every year. So it manages 13 million acres of land and can do real estate transactions and commercialize those pieces of land and put those dollars back into the permanent school fund and into public schools. This is an agency that cannot be run effectively, let alone well, with a career politician. It's got to be somebody who understands business, who understands process, who can work with the communities and local schools and local businesses and moms and dads to help it flourish.
To manage the business, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
And that makes sense. So talking about how you can help school fund, the permanent school fund. So how does that work with tax collecting for school entities?
Well,
could we have less taxes by using this?
Look, you're reading my mind.
I'm just going there. I'm going there.
I have been an ardent supporter of private property rights. I've been on a board of a political action committee in Houston for several years that's an advocate for private property rights, HRBC. And a component of that is taxes. And how do we ensure that taxes aren't a burden, but are a vehicle for the right opportunities in our communities? And look, schools are the number one driver for property taxes.
Oh, yes.
And I personally feel
it's beyond the majority.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
I personally feel that the legislature didn't go far enough in alleviating the tax burden on property owners. So, what are some other ways that we can help out? Well, clearly, the land office, if it's run well and more efficiently, could generate more dollars for the permanent school fund, and we can look at creative opportunities to get those dollars into our schools.
This is a big deal.
Glenn Hager, our comptroller, just announced about a month ago that the surplus in the state of Texas at the end of fiscal year 23 will be $12 billion. There are multiple ways to help Texans keep the dollars in their pockets and still benefit our public schools. And I feel the land office under an Armenta administration can be a key piece in that puzzle. So that's what I'm going to do.
I love it.
Thanks.
I'm just going to say I love that because, if you hit the pocketbook, that's the most important thing. People care about that, and property taxes is gotten crazy. And anybody can look on your taxes. I'm sure you've gotten it for now. This is December, payable by the end of January. But if you pay it now, you can deduct it, of course, 2021. But it's craziness. I mean, the schools do need the funds. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody can question that. But how else can they get funding for what they do to educate our kids?
We've done a lot of things right, of course, in Texas. We've got a balanced budget. We have this surplus, but we're leaving opportunity on the table. So somebody who has business experience, real world experience, I also have experience in public policy. I understand these issues, but can bring all that to the table to create more opportunity and help us achieve the vision that we want in Texas for our schools. It's totally doable. Our schools are falling way far behind against other states and across the world, and dollars are a big part of that, and the land office can help. It needs to do more.
That's good. That's really interesting. So what is the contrast between you and the other candidates? Do they have this business background, or what makes you a superb candidate for this position?
Well, number one, I'm a businessman. I'm absolutely an outsider. I haven't been in an elected position before, and I feel that's a strength.
You're energized.
I am fired up. I mean, there's so much work to be done, but you have to be willing to look at these situations and agencies with cold, fresh eyes. You have to look at it and dissect it and figure out where the opportunities are. How do you amplify the strengths of an agency like the land office, and then how do you close the gaps? Career politicians don't know how to do that. They just don't.
They get a little complacent, say, to speak?
I mean,
in their position. And how long is this position?
So one of my opponents has had the opportunity over the last handful of years to hold the land office accountable for where it's fallen short. Not once has she called a hearing in the Texas Senate to ask what's been happening with the dollars that have been allocated to renovate the Alamo. Not once has she called a hearing to figure out why the deaths in the veterans' long-term care homes were twice the average as other long-term care homes across the state of Texas. So, look, this is a tough job where somebody cannot be afraid of what people think about them. They just need to do what's right for our values and for all Texans.
How long is the term?
It's 4 years. So it's an elected position, which means it's accountable to the people of Texas. It's not appointed, so it doesn't report to any other elected official. But I feel like when the land commissioner is doing the job well, they're working with all those different stakeholder groups. I mentioned Comptroller Hager earlier, but a land commissioner needs to work with the state legislature. Land commissioner needs to work with the governor's office. It also needs to know how to work with the federal government. Part of the responsibilities of the land office is to oversee recovery after a natural disaster. Well, a vast majority of those funds come from the federal government and from HUD and different grant programs. So the land commissioner needs to understand how to work with HUD, how to access those dollars, but how to ensure that the federal government doesn't overreach and tell Texas how to use those dollars. That's not their role or their responsibility. Their responsibility is to ensure that we get those when our people, our homeowners, our churches, our businesses have been flooded out or have been caught in wildfires. We need to get those dollars, and then they need to get the heck out of the way.
Very good. So let's talk about your other responsibilities. Tell me about how you oversee benefits for veterans.
The Veterans Program is really a program in the land office that is near and dear to my heart. I've got a close friend. His name's Ronnie. He's a Marine Corps veteran. When he got out of the Marines, he got into construction and started his own business, so a small business owner as well. And over the last couple of years, he's been looking at opportunities to move out of Houston and to go into a rural area to raise his kids. So he found this great piece of land in Belleville. And one of the things that the land office does is it offers low-interest home loans and land loans to Texas veterans. So it's great. So he reached out to the land office to apply for one of those low-interest loans. Well, after a couple weeks, he hadn't heard anything back. So he followed up, and then 2 more weeks, still nothing. And then 2 more weeks, 4 months. It took 4 months for him to find out what happened with his loan application on something that he could have gone to a community bank down the street and had it sorted out in about 2 to 3 weeks. So way too much.
That's a long time.
Way too long. Way too much bureaucracy. The process needs to be streamlined. Technology needs to be used differently within the land office. We need to do better by our veterans. Last week, some news broke that was pretty disheartening about the land office. A gentleman who is in charge of investments of the dollars that come through the land office made a public statement to the effect that the Texas veterans cemeteries in the state, and there's 4 of them, are a financial burden on Texans. Look, let me be clear. Veterans are never a burden. They are never a burden. And we need to fund those cemeteries. And I made a campaign promise a week ago that I will take half of my salary for every year that I'm in office, and I will put it back into veteran services. We need to fund those. And I believe that that will just be the first domino that falls. I think Texans all across the state will see what's going on and say, how can I give? How can I help those veterans programs? How can I make sure that the individuals who have given so much, sacrificed their time, their family, and in some cases, it all with their lives, how do we help them? And I think they will.
Very good. Have you been to our Montgomery County Veterans Memorial Park?
I have, just right off the interstate.
Right down the road
It's
here.
Beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
And I believe, I'm not mistaken, that some additional dollars from the state legislature
$7 million.
are going to be coming to
Yes.
continue to enhance it and grow it, right?
Representative Will Metcalf made that happen.
Yeah, did a fantastic job in the special
I'm
sessions.
on the commission, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. Are you excited about it?
Yes, very much.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And, you know, you're seeing these communities invest in their veterans. And the land office seems to have looked at it recently as just another to-do. I mentioned earlier that the death rate in the veterans' homes, so there's 10 veterans long-term care facilities, and some of these are memory care facilities, so like nursing homes. And they're open to Texas veterans and spouses and dependents. And during the height of COVID, the death rate in these homes was twice the average of other homes across the state. Now, look, we didn't know what we were stepping into with COVID, but leaders are proactive and take action. And the land office just took a step back and let these private companies who are overseeing these homes just try to figure it out on their own. You know, the governor went out of state and hired 2,000 nurses. The land commissioner didn't ask for any of those nurses to be allocated to those homes. And in fact, the mayor of Floresville offered to take some of the city resources to help out the veterans home that was there, and she never heard back from the land office. So, look, these are hard issues.
There's some issues.
These are hard issues.
There's some big issues.
And you're not going to please everyone. But if you do what's right based on Texas values, you can't go wrong.
These are some great points. So, lastly, I want to talk little bit about the Alamo and your role with the Alamo.
The state of Texas, Texans through the legislature and Governor Perry, identified that the land office should be the primary historian for our greatest historical artifact, the Alamo. And that includes preservation, restoration, presentation of history as it really was with facts. And the land office has effectively over the last few years turned it into a talking point for Democrats. So there was a bunch of drama about not involving and working closely with the Daughters of the Republic. There was a controversy around moving the cenotaph, which should never move because it's a memorial to the lives that were lost there. But the land office also signed a 50-year lease with the city of San Antonio to oversee the Alamo Plaza. That's going to be a complete rewrite of the facts and the history of what was essentially our Gettysburg. I mean, that is where we held the line against tyranny. And it's not just Anglos, it's Tejanos, it's Texians, 189 of them understood the impact of what was going on there. So the second promise I made during my campaign was that within my first year, I'm going to get us out of that lease, and I'm going to ensure that the land office oversees the entire Alamo Plaza, and we are going to expand and grow the battlefield depictions and make it as close to the way it was back in 1836.
You know, I went there over Easter.
Okay.
And it looked totally different from what I've seen it. It was basically gutted out of most restoration pieces, displays, anything. And, of course, you had to wait your turn and come back later to go in and see the Alamo. I'm hoping it's more open now than it was then in Easter. But it was not what I'd ever remembered seeing.
Like
it was totally different.
The land office was given $150 million to oversee this renovation and restoration. The progress is a snail's pace at best. And the land office has gone out and hired architects, historians, and firms that are outside of Texas. Look, this is Texas. We have some of the best universities.
Right.
Engineers, brilliant minds in Texas. We need to do this the Texas way, and we need to get it done.
So, in closing, what are two things you want voters to know about you?
The number one thing is that I'm going to represent all of Texas. All of Texas. So the issues and concerns of Texans in Amarillo are different and unique than the issues and concerns in Uvalde or in Austin or here in Montgomery County. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to streamline and restructure how the land office works so that there is regional leadership solving regional problems. The lack of community engagement is glaring, and so we need to fix that. And the second thing is that I'm a true conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm deeply rooted in my Christian faith. I'm a Catholic, and I'm proud to embody those as the cornerstone of what makes me up as a husband and a father and a man. So I'm excited to earn everybody's vote, and I'm looking forward to people voting in the March 1st primary.
And how can they best get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, benarmenta.com. I answer every email that comes to me, which is ben@benarmenta.com. Go to our Facebook page, Ben Armenta, Texas, and follow. Send me a message. Tell me what concerns you have, what ideas you have. I'd love to listen.
So you'll be back in Montgomery County, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. That wraps it up. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.